A pathless wilderness, wild, rugged, that was
South Dakota.
a hardy frontier, far from the paths of civilization,
Why die on Mars when you can live in South Dakota?
where fortune beckons with a glittering smile,
I was hauling pigs on the interstate. You were in a red car having a problem with your shirt.
and life hung on the quickness of a trigger finger.
Podcast Palooza.
The Sioux Empire Podcast.
Well, hello everyone, and welcome to another fantastic episode of the Sioux Empire Podcast. This is the Sioux Empire Podcast, the quirky but harmless podcast that's all about Sioux Empire news, comedy, music, and culture. I am your host, Robert Mailing, and joining me as always is Seth the Glover.
And slightly prepared is Seth Glover. All right.
Very nice. Also joining us from the Happy Warrior Podcast on this network is Mr. Peter Bishke.
Bangarang.
Bangarang?
Bangarang.
Bangarang!
It's from my favorite movie, Hook.
That is a great movie.
Rufio.
Rufio! 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 And leading the Rufio insurrection here in the studio is our guest, Tony Reese, who is a public relations consultant and political analyst.
That's correct. That's
Awesome.
That's what I've got. So we're here to talk about the.
We're here to pull apart the midterms.
Oh, I thought we were here to talk about the actual story that captivated the nation in 2018, the saga of Ariana Grande and Pete Davidson.
We'll start with that, and then
Too fresh.
how that relates to the 2018 midterm, and how that through the 2018 midterms.
I have
Pete's
no
got a
idea who
heel.
those people are.
I don't either.
He does. I'm starting to think that Pete no longer thinks that God is a woman.
I think.
That I know that one. No, that was a deep theological dissertation for her reasoning. That was Ariana Grande. She was the one that did the song about God being a woman, or was that Nicki Minaj?
No, that was Ariana Grande, and I don't know how deep and theological it was, but pretty sure through all the summer.
I'm sure scholars will.
God was certainly a woman.
He certainly was of that mindset.
I'm certain that
changed.
religious scholars will debate that song for many eons to come.
Yeah.
It's going to be
A reading from the Book of Grande.
that's what's going to be. It's like the second Planet of the Apes movie where they worship the nuclear warhead.
Yes.
It's going to last to ages, and that's going to be one of the few relics from our
It's gonna
timeline.
be like her frozen in amber with like a MP3 file or something. Yeah.
Called John the 800th, we'll say. She was right. Saint
Is the
Ariana of Grande was correct.
Is the space pope reptilian? Oh, good old Futurama. So anyway, where should we start? Pete, I know you are like chomping at the bit with some thoughts on this most recent election. What's something you want to talk about with the election?
Dusty Johnson killed it, but no one should be surprised. I was at the GOP party, and some people were like, Peter, it's amazing. Dusty Johnson, that was such a hard-fought election. I was like, are you kidding me? The guy after him got 36%.
Yeah, that race was many things. I don't know that hard fought is like where I'd go with that as a descriptor.
I'm not sure I would even go with the descriptor that the race was many things. I think the race was one thing. A well-known, well-liked Republican who spent time as an activist, a statewide elected official, chief of staff to the governor, has done a good job building up relationships around the state, an all-around nice guy, a lot of energy, who, quite frankly, looks like a congressman and has since he was 12. And you know, is also a policy wonk and can talk about it knowledgeably. This was not, Peter's right, this was not a surprise election. I guess, well, it's surprising in one sense that Bjorkman got over 35%. That maybe is a little bit of a surprise. But if you go back and you look at 2014, the Democrats all got 33% or low.
Yeah.
Less. I mean, the Senate candidate then I think got like 27% of the vote. So it's so the Bjorkman getting the up to 36% is shocking, but Dusty blowing it out of the water and winning the way he won, it's not surprising at all.
Oh no, that was fun. You know, when Dusty Johnson got up, they were like, "We'll bring up the college Republicans." They all got up before him, and I was like, "Wait a second, I know you're non-college. I know you're not a good. A bunch of opportunists are in this room."
Opportunists at a political rally? No way. But yeah, I know what you mean. Oh man. So I think probably the big story for South Dakota, other than some of the ballot measures, was the very unexpectedly tight governor's race. So I mean, I don't know. I kind of knew it was going to be a long shot for Billy, but I don't know. It was close. I mean,
it was certainly close. I going into it had the Sutton Valley ticket at a high water mark of 45%. That, of course, based on the only public polling we saw, the KELO Argus poll, that had the Gnome campaign and the Sutton campaign tied at 45-45 about a week and a half, 2 weeks out, and then pulled again, and she had pulled ahead
just a little bit
by 3 points, and he dropped down to 44. She bumped up to 47. I thought that high water mark was going to be that 45%, but in the end, he ended up with 48 to her 51. I think it was surprisingly close, shockingly close, not something that the Gnome campaign, I think, necessarily expected. She's a tough campaigner. She certainly knows how to run a tough race. She won her first statewide race, and it was a tough year beating a popular incumbent Blue Dog Democrat. And she did it again. Sutton certainly is an old vestige of the Blue Dog Democrats, probably the last one in the country. But yeah, no, that was a close race, and I just took a look at a comparison of where he won in some of the areas of surprising. He won in Minnehaha County by about 7 points, which is not entirely surprising. But he also won up in the Northeast and just some of the counties: Brookings County, Moody County, Lake County, just north of Sioux Falls, and then along the river down to Yankton stuff, and of course Indian Country and Hughes County was surprised. Well, I guess I don't know if I would say Hughes County was necessarily a surprising win. They said that 62% of registered voters in Hughes County, and that's where the capital is for those who are listening, are registered Republicans, and Sutton was able to pull off a win there. But I look at it as sort of an untold story that if you're looking for a candidate that the peer insiders and those who work in state government were looking for someone who's going to keep the status quo, then it would be Sutton. So certainly the folks in peer, I believe, viewed Sutton as less of an outsider, less of an agent of change than Gnome.
So that's interesting, and you're not the first person I've seen kind of like mention that. And I would have thought it was the opposite, but I do understand that Billy has been in the state legislature for a while, so he's a known quantity at least to them. But I would have thought that because Gnome is from the same party that I'm imagining a lot of the people that operate in Hughes County are, and maybe I'm under a false impression there. I assumed that was a pretty red county, but
it is pretty red, and that's what is surprising me. Dusty Johnson won Hughes County. So
right.
He also won a lot of the counties that Gnome lost in the eastern part of the state. In fact, like all of them except for maybe Union County.
But what do you think as a kind of a Gnome observer? You think she's going to is the fear she's going to clean house a little bit, or?
Oh, I think so. I think that she's a lot of the fear. I'm not going to say fear. That's the wrong word, but I think a lot of people view Gnome as somebody who is going to clean house, and we saw this, too, in the primary. Some people would criticize Gnome and say, "Oh, she's just going to bring in her people into government." I'm like, well, good, that's good, right? That's what you do, and if you think that Jackley's going to do anything differently, then or Jackley would keep all the same people. And the fact is if we go back and sort of look at the history, at the end of Governor Dugard's term, that'll be 16 years of a Rounds administration. And so we had, Senator Rounds, who was governor for 2 2 terms, and his lieutenant governor gets elected governor. A lot of the same people stuck around.
Oh, yeah.
There's not a lot of high turnover in state government.
Yep.
In South Dakota, whether that's to the benefit or the detriment, I don't know. And when Governor Rounds came in, he kept a lot of the old Jankel administration officials around too. So I
was gonna say, I always thought of Rounds as a continuation of Jankel.
Right.
So
we've got a lot of cabinet secretaries and high level government management who have been around for 20 plus years, which is really surprising. If you look at other states, a lot of times when a new administration comes in, they'll bring in their own cabinet and stuff, and not just have a continuation of the folks who have been there before. And if Jackley had gotten the Republican nomination and subsequently won the election, he was appointed AG, Governor Rounds.
He would have absolutely been in that camp.
To year 20 of the Rounds, and there's nothing against Governor Rounds, but sometimes there is a need for change. I just think I look at Hughes County and I look at how Republican it is, and I don't know if it would have been interesting to see if Sutton had won, if a lot of those voters would change over to Democrat. Are they just going with the hand that feeds them kind of a thing? But I certainly see that as sort of indicative of, it's either a lot of hurt feelings because that was the only county that Jackley won in the primary, I believe.
Sure.
Or one of them. Or it's they saw Sutton as less of a chance to upset the status quo, to keep the status quo, greater chance of keeping the status quo. Is my.
I found it odd that he didn't win his home county of Gregory County.
Oh, I missed that.
Very
he didn't.
Small.
Yeah,
margin,
he lost it by
lost
just
his home. It was like maybe 100 votes one way.
It's those neighbors, man.
Man, that mayor.
And it was the weirdest thing. Like, I never thought I would live to, like, I lived to see the day where I would be watching a political ad on TV and just be like, hey, I was in jail with that guy. She was in the grade below me. That guy's a fucking idiot.
He's from
I'm from Berg, so I know these people.
So you know how bad Sutton is then.
Oh, just the worst. Oh, he is just no. Fuck, dude. That is such a crazy.
That was a crazy ad
that I had to. I work overnights, and so like God, they play that thing. So like, we would watch the morning news from 5 a.m. to 7 a.m. and I would see that stupid commercial about his neighbors
over and over,
probably 10 times or more in that like the weeks leading up. So that just drove me up a wall, but. I thought it was so weird that he lost his home county, and I'm sure that like there's probably never been a governor that's won that hasn't lost or that hasn't won their home county. I bet. I mean, that's just seems odd or crazy that somebody that was running for governor, if they do get elected, they have to win their home county, right? I mean,
I don't know about that. I mean, when McGovern ran for president, he didn't even win South Dakota.
This is true.
So,
South Dakota's legendary for like shitting on its own people that make it to the
We're the nation's backstabbers.
I don't know about that, but sometimes.
North Dakota, you better watch your back.
And I really appreciate the shout out, Billy, and the concession speech. I don't know if you guys weren't listening to it.
He gave you a shout out?
Totally gave me a shout out.
What?
Totally did. He didn't say Glover, but he said Seth.
Oh.
And I was like, yep, that was me. That was me.
I'll take it.
Seth from Berg.
Billy, I really, I appreciate it, but I am the king of bad calls on this show because I mean you pick any like great competition and I've chosen the loser. The year that the Warriors won, I chose the Cavs. The year that the Cavs won, I chose the Warriors. I chose the Atlanta Falcons over the New England Patriots. We all know how that went.
Oh God!
I chose so many. I chose the fucking Dodgers over the Red Sox. Anyway. And once again, I jinxed it, and I think that my bad luck probably weighs about 20,000 votes. So I'm sorry, Billy. I did that. I am sorry. I didn't know that I had that big of an impact, but you know
I wonder
what?
how that psychosis works or whatever, or that like psychological mechanism, because I always think that like I like Minnesota sports teams from when I lived there, and I don't follow them, and if I don't follow them, they do great. But the second I peek at, like, oh man, they're doing really great this season, as soon as I look, like, every week after that, it's just like fail. Or, like, game I turn on, they're, like, in the lead, and then they'll lose the lead, like, immediately when I turn on the TV. But, yeah, I'm sure that's all in my head. But
no,
yeah.
You should stop watching Minnesota sports. At least the Vikings. Please, God. Please.
Fair enough.
The Twins keep on watching. Go Cardinals.
Is Brett Favre still playing? Is that still a thing?
He's still. You can see him in that. There's something about Mary.
The local sports team.
Sports team!
What's that?
You can see him in some commercials about some copper fit stuff that old guys and young athletes alike put on their arms or stuff. I don't know.
Oh man, it gets all those Wisconsin ladies.
At least he's not doing Blue Emu.
That's true.
Oh yeah, the Blue Emu. Pain
Is that something that
lotion.
Ric Flair got into later in life?
I don't know.
So, let's see.
So are there lessons to be learned over the difference between the race for House and the race for governor? I certainly think that there is. If we, look at the counties, I mean, Republicans really should pay closer attention to Sioux Falls. We've got a Republican mayor who endorsed Gnome, and she lost the area. Will Johnson won the area.
And a fairly popular mayor.
Yeah, fairly popular.
Yeah, Noby. We're talking about Rick Noby?
No,
Munson. Hankin?
PTH. His honor.
I used to work with Rick Noby, so I always go to Noby. Larry Pressler also endorsed, I think.
He endorsed
Those Pressler votes. I mean, those really helped.
That's probably what put Gnome over the edge.
Yeah.
There was the good Senator Pressler's endorsement of Sutton. But, South Dakota is, in Sioux Falls in particular, Minnehaha County, is interesting. A lot of Republicans, we've got this whole, in fairness, pay attention. Anything, if you do something in Rapid City, if you do something in Sioux Falls, you got to do something in Rapid City. Otherwise, feelings get hurt. But a lot of folks, I feel like, think that Sioux Falls is this bastion of liberal ideology, like where Madison, Wisconsin, or Minneapolis or Chicago,
District 10,
where it's completely District 10 is winnable by Republicans if they ran people.
I don't know, man. I've knocked doors in District 10. It's pretty.
I don't know. I was
tough.
talking to the other people in my collective farm, the government mandates I work in here in Sioux Falls, and I don't know about that. No.
Run somebody, find somebody and run them, and outwork them. They can certainly win. It's not unheard of. I mean, Jenna Hagar represented that district as a Republican. After she won as an independent, she beat them, became a Republican, represented the area. It's winnable. The Republicans just don't run anybody in District 10, and that's such a small section anyway. And the Democrats only win it because nobody else runs there, so there's no option. And that's not representative of all of Sioux Falls. So, but my point is that Sioux Falls is becoming so large, and the I-29 corridor from Sioux Falls to Brookings and maybe Aberdeen and down to the Iowa border is becoming so populous that you really are going to have to campaign a lot heavier and a lot harder and campaign for those votes that are maybe a little bit more for South Dakota moderate Republican, a Chamber of Commerce type voter, than some of the ranching counties out west. And so it's going to be something that I think that the Republican Party really needs to focus on and build on there and do some outreach for. And I think doing so will, sort of flip some of those counties back to red in 4 years.
I mean, I guess my question for that is that, with Sioux Falls, is that a reflection of all the national trend? Because Republicans across the nation failed to get suburban voters. I mean, we do have Rapid City area, which might say that breaks that, but did some of that influence part of the reason maybe that they lost?
I don't think so. I think that the Gnome campaign went really hard in the primary up to the end, and then kind of took the foot off the gas and slowed down throughout the summer and really didn't hit it hard again until the last few weeks of the campaign. Whereas Sutton had been around here a lot. Johnson had been around Sioux Falls a lot. And it's and to be honest, it's tough, I think, for a sitting member of Congress to, number one, even run for re-election. Number two, to run for governor, especially when the House is in session. Because if Gnome wasn't out there voting and doing her job, and the Sutton campaign is like, well,
they nail her on that.
Okay, she's not out there doing her work.
Yeah.
We send her to Washington. What does she do? She's not out there. Comes home to campaign. Well, yeah.
Then she goes.
She doesn't go back, but if she goes out to Washington to do the work, then it's like,
oh, she's a Washington elite out there in Washington.
Washington elite is looking at her out there, not back here with the folks. So you're sort of damned if you do, damned if you don't. On that, I think some of that played into it as well. I don't think that anything nationally played into what's happening here in South Dakota. Because if that was true, then Dusty Bjorkman would have had a better representation.
Because they didn't go his way. They just went Sutton.
No. So they either went Sutton or they went against Gnome. And with all politics being local, or a couple of reasons. She really, really went hard after Jack Lee, and that's fine. Because there were some things in there that I didn't know that Jack Lee had done that were fairly disturbing. With that legal settlement, that's more of an indictment on our news media for not covering that in a big way. The fact that most South Dakotans probably learned about that through a paid political advertisement is really, really a sad statement for our news media in the state. Not paying attention to government. Part of it's because Pierre is so isolated and that no one's out there looking at stuff. But no, I don't think that Gnome's performance is anything. There's no connection to what went on nationwide. I don't think nationwide. I don't think that you can even read into anything.
Yeah, and I think South Dakota tends to be fairly insular from a lot of the national trends. It feels like so.
Yeah. Okay. I was just curious. I just want to know. I guess some of my other questions was so the Gnome versus Sutton strategy. A lot of people are saying was that Gnome's campaign was pretty dirty, edgy, and Sutton's campaign refused to go there. And is that true? Because even the Argus, the polls going into it, the Argus leader poll in near the bottom of the page said the likability rating of Sutton had actually decreased. That something the Gnome campaign was doing was harming. At least this is what they wanted you to infer from the article, was harming the Sutton campaign.
I would say that both campaigns on the governor's race went quote unquote negative. For Sutton to say that Congresswoman Gnome is he said this in debates. He said that the worst of Washington D.C. The worst of Washington. She's the worst of Washington D.C. Somebody who passed historic tax cuts, was cozy with the President of the United States, who's still, among Republicans, is the second most popular politician in the state, losing out only to John Thune. To say that she's the absolute worst of Washington when you've got, people like Robert Menendez of New Jersey on trial for corruption.
Oh, that's unbelievable, that guy winning re-election.
You got Charlie Rangel, who, evaded taxes for years, and you've got and Republicans resigning over extra mail. She's not the worst of Washington. That was an unfair attack that they thought would work, and when they said, oh, she raised taxes, both of them were accusing each other of raising taxes, and I think it's far more nuanced than that. When you look at it, if you change the way taxes are calculated and collected and it raises revenue, that's not a raise in taxes. But so I think both went negative, and I think both viewed them as not going negative, but pointing out the record of their opponent. That's the funny thing. The other thing too is negative campaigning works. If it didn't work, they wouldn't do it.
Everyone always says they hate it, and then it totally influences them, and they do. Yeah, it's that. Yeah. So it's like that's the lesson, is that it works, and I feel like they both went negative. I just feel like Gnome was better at going negative, or whoever was putting her stuff together. It was more targeted and
some of those campaign
effective.
ads though.
and
Woof.
more, and just the volume was more.
Yeah, that's true, because I saw lots of, like, Billy is this and Billy is this ads, like, constantly
It's like
on TV.
41 on
Couldn't-
the
And I
couldn't get
like,
away from them.
I literally can't remember seeing, and I know they were out there.
Oh,
I'm
they
not saying
were.
he didn't, but I can't, a negative one against Gnome. I can't remember actually ever seeing one on TV. I think they're all ones that I saw a press release for and went out and found it.
5 a.m. to 7 a.m. Man, there's that it was chock full of it, and
The witching
it was
hour.
like 1 to 4, man.
And I think that's less indicative of campaign strategy and more indicative of the proper usage and efficient usage of campaign resources and dollars. And,
Sure.
Maybe Gnome had a better ad buyer than Sutton when they put it in. And Sutton, had some things too that really, I think, worked against him that he shouldn't have done. First, was maybe he shouldn't have hired a highly partisan, very left, Suzy Jones from the Democratic Party of South Dakota. I think that, once you start surrounding yourself with that, it's really easy to say, well, you're just going to govern as a leftist. Look at who you've surrounded yourself with.
They're both from Berg. They're all from Berg.
Burke is the
Okay.
Burke is the
Nobody
governmental
saw that.
hotspot.
Suzy was
so
the
not-
grade
so-
above me.
So not only does he surround himself with leftists, but he's also into
Burkeans.
nepotism too.
Oh, yeah.
Apparently,
Right, I
apparently
forgot
Burke
that.
is the
I
great
forgot
fountainhead of political thought.
What? Edwin Burke is awesome. I don't know about Burke, South Dakota.
Yeah.
Yeah, I agree.
No,
But,
and the other big error I think that the Sun campaign just walked right into was, if you're going to portray your ticket as a pro-life ticket, do not hold a fundraiser at the home of the head of Planned Parenthood.
Yeah, I would. That
Do
was a
not-
big mistake
He
that they
should've-
could never
should've
shake
said,
off.
Hey, he should have said, no, we're not doing that.
I didn't know that. Ouch.
Should have said, not doing that.
Yeah, I'm trying to think of his name. I was going to say Donnie Deutsch, but that's not right. I think it's Larry Deutsch, the guy that's head of Right to Life here in South Dakota. I think they were said that Gnome was an A, but Sutton was a C, and that they had some real strong reservations about in Sutton if he became governor.
Yeah. And I think that, it's tough to say. I think that, I believe Sutton when he says he was pro-life, I think it was a hard sell to say that he isn't, but, holding the fundraiser at the head of Planned Parenthood was an error that going back and in their post-mortem, they may be saying maybe we ought not have done that. Because you could have gotten the same people to show up to somebody else's house.
That's true.
Right?
Yeah, it's a
and
very,
then just,
in your
not,
face kind of thing.
Not take the $250 or whatever from the person who's directly connected to Planned Parenthood. I mean,
So I think that's interesting. That kind of ties into something I've been seeing a lot of people on the left, doing the typical soul searching afterwards and stuff like that on social media. And there's a big debate in the South Dakota left, I think, or what I'm seeing on social media, which, take or leave, of should the Democratic Party go hard left or keep the moderate thing, because they feel like Sutton was the ultimate expression of the moderate path and that it failed. But yeah, and I don't know if I agree with that. That's just like the debate that's going back and forth on social media. I'm curious your thoughts on that.
I don't think that after any election that any of the parties should make a hard break, left or right. I think if the Democrats made a hard break to the left, that would really seal their fate in the state as a party that truly is
Devil's
decimated
advocate,
and
the-
ineffective. Go ahead.
The point I've seen online about it, especially with the people arguing for going hard left, is looking at and broadening our conversation a little bit into the national, Kansas, the different results that came out in Kansas, where they did have candidates that went hard left in what is traditionally a hard right state or a pretty secure Republican bastion, and by going hard left, they got enough of their base sucked up that they won.
I think Kansas is an interesting situation. I'm assuming you're talking about the governor's race.
The governor and the woman that won one of the first Native American women.
Yeah, the lesbian Native American chick. Yeah. I've heard a lot about her on Facebook.
I would say that I think that all politics is local. In the governor's race, at least what you had was actually a fairly moderate Democrat running against a hard right Republican running, who's an immigration hardliner, and was quite far to the right, to the point where you had every living Republican governor of the state of Kansas endorsed the Democrat, and I think that carried a lot of weight, with the exception of maybe Ambassador Brownback. But that, I think, really is what put the Democrat over the edge. I mean, we'll see in 4 years if it's something that transfers a lot, but I think that was a situation between, you've got somebody who is palatable and moderate, and then somebody who's extreme to the right, and who just probably wasn't all that likable. I don't know enough about the congressional race.
It was Sharice Davis.
You beat me.
Well, that's because
you're Googling as fast, but you have a PC. I have a ye old Cricket cell phone.
I didn't Google it. Longer story than we have time to tell here. I already have her contact info pulled up on my computer. So anyway,
are you pen pals with Sharice Davis?
I may become one as producer of Urban Indians podcast. She may be
Dear
one of our
Sharice.
guests coming up. So
that'd be cool.
That should be. You should make that like a section on your blog. You should put it just when you have at the top. You should have a section right there at the end. Ask Sharice. It'll be like a advice column, like Ask Ann.
He's gonna just do it. Ask Peter. And then just whenever you see Peter, just give him like a stack of paper.
Here you go.
I printed these off. Could you fill these out?
Nice. So yeah. So anyway,
I was surprised though. I think that I mean, I don't know what the numbers for the last governor's race was, but like how many in total Democrats voted last time 4 years ago to now. I mean, did it increase? Did it decrease?
I think turnout increased.
Yeah,
this year. I think we had
but I bet
62% turnout.
it feels like Republican has plateaued, but it feels like they're, I don't know, just classic South Dakotans. They're always there's this group of us that are just always going to do our part, and it's the Republican voters that always are like. It seems like they always are there in masses and.
Well, that's because the Republicans have got about 50% of registered voters in the state are Republican, about 26%, 27% are Democrat.
Yeah.
25, 24%, something like that, no political affiliation or independent, so we don't know which way they swing.
Yeah, they might be hard left, but there's a lot of them that are hard right.
A lot of them are right. A lot of them are middle of the road, just sick of the parties, and a lot of them really just don't think that it's any of the government's business which way you register with the party and how that's even valuable. But certainly. Certainly, so the Democrats, they start off with 100,000 vote deficit right off the bat. So I don't know if it is an increase in Democrat turnout more so than people who split the ticket between all of the other Republicans in the governor's race in the state.
Yeah, it's like for a Dem to win, they've really got to poach. They got to get a lot of the independents, and then they've got to poach away some
got to get
registered
a significant
Republicans.
Amount of Republicans, and that's why a move to the hard left, because
would be untenable.
If you look at nationwide, independent voters really are middle of the road. They don't like when things go too far to the left. They don't like when things go too far to the right. So if the Democrats were to go too far to the left, a huge swath of the independent voters would be up for grabs to the Republicans. And if the Republicans adopt more of a strategy of sort of the Chamber of Commerce more moderate, let's talk about how to grow our economy, things like that, and individual liberty, it becomes a bigger majority. I mean, and quite frankly, if we look at the legislature, Republicans grew majority potentially. We've got some seats that are in recount territory, but at this point, it's looking like the Senate's going to be 30-5. And that's if there's no recount, or if Senator Curd holds his lead over Casey Oliver here in Sioux Falls, then it'll be 30-5. If not, then the status quo doesn't change. I mean, I think Sutton's seat flipped from him as a Democrat to a Republican.
Those Berg ads, man.
Yeah,
those
there's
Berkins, they're fickle.
No loyalty.
And then And in the House too, I haven't looked at all of those because there are some seats that are in sort of recount territory, but it looks like the Republicans grew the majority there as well. So it's interesting. So I think that the governor's race, I think, has nothing to do with national politics, nothing to do with the success or the failure of all of the Republican Party, but has everything to do with two likable candidates, really, that posed a difficult choice. And when you had a hard-fought primary on the Republican side, where do people whose feelings
got hurt during the Jackley fight?
Where do they go when they're still, feeling burned after that primary fight?
Okay, I guess. Okay, I have a lot of questions. I'm kind of excited to ask you, but I guess I'll cut them down to a few. Okay, so first, so you don't think the Cavanaugh stuff fed into this? Because I've heard from some people that says, that the Cavanaugh thing just woke up, even in South Dakota, that woke up South Dakota and not trusting Democrats, because they would say, look, I like Sutton on a lot of things, but he's still a Democrat, and I can just not trust those guys.
I think that well, I mean, the governor doesn't vote on Supreme Court justices. Neither does a congressman.
No, I'm not saying that. I'm not from an electoral perspective.
Some party loyalists who might have otherwise not made a huge effort to go and vote in this election probably did get energized by the tactics of the Democrats during the Cavanaugh hearings. Certainly, that's true. I think that did energize a lot of the Republican base. I think that's part of the reason why you saw such a on the Republican side such an influx in voters coming out, and being energized to go and vote on that, was sort of, I think, pushed back on the blue wave. And you had on the Democrat side, it really wasn't a vote for any of these candidates, but it was really a vote against Trump. Really, I think then that's how they ran the campaign. So they tried to nationalize, but I think, you had a lot of energy on both sides, and what drove that energy, I don't know. I certainly think that the Cavanaugh hearings helped on the Republican side, but they probably helped on the Democrat side too. Because I mean, there was a congressman who is set to become a chair who's already talking about Cavanaugh impeachment, over, which is like, he's like, he perjured himself from the story. Right?
Oh,
like,
God. You lost. Move on.
You found out he drank 7 beers instead of 6 during Beach Week? I don't know.
I know. I never in my lifetime thought I was going to sit through testimony for a Supreme Court nominee that was all about what Becky said about, Jill over at the frat.
Who's we?
But Robert,
4th of July mean?
What is boof? What is boof?
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. That was a cluster.
And I think that certainly helped nationally with Republicans building their numbers in the Senate. I think that the Kavanaugh stuff helped it.
That's something national.
It looks like it might be a 53, 54 Republican senators now, which is, if I'm the president, I'm more excited about keeping the Senate than I am the House.
However,
the House. What legislation have they really pushed through recently, other than the tax cuts, right? They had a bill in 2017. I don't know what the status is. That tried to deal with healthcare and protecting pre-existing conditions, and that was one that Speaker Ryan really pushed through. But the Democrats, I don't know if it never passed out of committee or where the status was in the House, but the Democrats really made an issue over pre-existing conditions, even though both parties are extremely in favor of pre-existing protection.
Yeah, they're both agreed on that.
They're both agreed on that, and so the Democrats, but somehow convince people that Republicans,
they own it.
That they own it, which it's the furthest thing from the truth. Both parties are in favor of it. Fully.
So I'm curious your thoughts, because I've been looking at it a little bit. You look at, there's always a backlash midterm, like after the president in the modern period anyway, starting with like Clinton or so. You get the president in, and they've got some support in Congress, or sometimes they have the Congress under their party, and then the midterm comes along, their first midterm comes along, and all of a sudden it's always like they're going to lose seats, or it seems like anyway. Because I think of Clinton, I think of Obama suffered that really bad because he had that super majority, and they were going to get so much stuff done, and then that midterm just
shellacked.
Yeah, they got shellacked badly. First off, I'm just like, you know, so I kind of felt that was inevitable, that it's like the Republicans would be on the defensive in this midterm. But I am impressed with, and I know anti-Trump people are going to like, oh God, he's praising Trump, but it seems like if you look at the numbers of the states where he actually went in and like got on the ground and like supported people, he actually did bulwark them, and he actually, it seems like it helped. Because I mean, if you look at how many seats like Obama lost or Clinton lost, it's like he didn't lose that much, and he gained in the Senate. And you could even see it in the numbers of like the places where he campaigned. So I'm just like, I don't know if I have a question, but just an observation that I'm just kind of like, say what you want about Trump, he it's like he worked. He actually, like, you know, he couldn't stop the blue wave, but I think he helped blunt it with the tactic.
It became less of a wave and more of a splash.
Yeah, or
you know, or like when you're standing on the edge of the beach and the water comes up and it just hits your toes a little bit, you kind of run back.
I feel like you know, it's like credit where credit's due. I feel like he contained it or helped a lot, which modern presidents have had trouble, I think.
Yeah,
doing.
I think that political scientists are going to have a heyday looking at this and trying to find out who exactly is the Trump voter. Are these voters who might not traditionally show up in a midterm election, who did show up because the president asked them to? And maybe they don't traditionally show up in presidential years, but you know, for some reason, you know, the president energized him when he talks about the forgotten man and forgotten woman. You know, people who feel like their voice wasn't being heard among, you know, the parties. You know, who really are those people? How often do they vote? And you know, is this just this unique sort of coalition of voters, blue collar voters who just haven't participated in a couple of cycles that did show up? But I think it's a good observation to show, and even the president mentioned in an interview a few days before the election that the interviewer asked if he would take the blame if Republicans lose the House, and he said no. He goes, I think I'm helping, and clearly he did. Where you know, he won in Missouri, North Dakota, Indiana, which was surprising.
Yeah.
Florida. I mean,
like I said, he was a bulwark. He affected it.
Yeah, and the only one that was surprising was that Tester continued to win in Montana, but it was pretty close. So yeah, no, he really did go out and work it, and he was tireless and energetic. I mean, if you look in Minnesota, he flipped a House district down in the southern point, or it's in recount territory. Flipped the northeast district of Minnesota right there. But I talked to a friend who was in the Rochester area, and the day that he was in town, 15,000 people showed up.
Jesus.
In Rochester, Minnesota, to an arena that held 5.
Yeah.
Right.
It's not a big place. I know where you're talking about.
Yeah. So that, I think, just shows that Trump may be more popular than polling suggests, and I think his efforts on the campaign trail, I think, certainly did help those who he was going out helping. And if you look at it, the Democrats, sure, they won seats, but as it stands now, you need 218 for a majority in the House, and I think they've got 226, so they got less than a 10-seat.
Yeah, it's not big.
And a lot of the seats that the Democrats won, and I think that this is worth pointing out, are not seats that are seats where Republican members opted to not run for re-election.
Yeah.
They decided to retire, and I think a lot of them did that early. I think they got scared by a blue wave, and I wouldn't be surprised. I mean, it'd be interesting to be a fly on the wall, or just to get in their head and see if they, you know, come October, September of this year, that they thought maybe I should have. Because you lose a lot of power in the incumbency. The incumbency's got a lot of power.
Yeah.
So I think, you know, a lot of the seats that the Republicans lost were due to them being open seats, and that's a lot harder. That's a lot harder race to run.
It's much more free for all.
Oh yeah. Yep.
one last thing on the national I wanted to ask was, so does Trump own the Republican Party now? And what I mean by that is, it seems like, you've got, within the big tent Republican Party, you've always got the, like, country club, like, Republicans. You've got the kind of, like, working class Republicans, you'd say. And they don't always get along, and there's been a lot of conflict between them internally. And I feel like, especially through the election and stuff, the Republicans always had to, like, any minute now we're going to step away from this because he's, it's working, but it's unstable, and we're going to step away. Do you think that goes away after this midterm? Do you think a lot of the, like, establishment Republicans see this and, like, okay, he's in it to win it, he turned the tide, and, he's the real deal? Does he own the party at this point, do you think?
I don't know if it's a but he is the president. The president
is always the head of the party. But we both know that, like, internally, that's not.
I think internally, I think Republicans, starting back in 2016, late 2015, when it looked very real that Trump was going to win the nomination, started to sort of temper. They realized that he's a force to be reckoned with, and a lot of them, I think, in terms of sort of hopped on the train, but kind of kept a public. They walked a
Yes.
fine line. One thing that I always go back to because I'm on everybody's mailing list is that you had a bunch of Senate Republicans in 2016 who really publicly distanced themselves from him, but they used Trump's name for fundraising. And they raised a ton of money. So it is it's a fine line where I think the politicians like to be sort of the media darlings, like when the media come up and talk to
people
them.
like a winner,
Yeah, and people like a winner, and I think that they're trying to figure out how do we sort of, not as senators, how do we get half the country to not hate us, and not vote against us because Trump is on the ticket. So how do we continue to win Senate seats in 16, while also making sure that we're not going to lose the Trump voter because we're viewed as anti-Trump. So, I mean, it is an interesting spot, I think, for the RNC answers to the president, and they've raised a ton of money. And he's already raised $100 million for his reelection. But for the House campaign caucus and the Senate campaign caucus, I think that they walk a fine line. I think they see the value in Trump, and I think they agree 100% with not maybe 100%, but 99% of the time with his policy objectives and his goals, tax cuts, healthcare reform, regulation reform. And it comes down to an approach and a style that they don't like, but they, I think, also see that style energizes people because people like to see a fighter, and Trump does best when he's got an opponent.
They like to see a fighter, and they like to see someone that's genuine. I think.
Well, then he might be in trouble because I don't see the Democrats don't seem to coalesce a figurehead at this point. You think that's intentional, maybe, to like?
Well, his opponent's Nancy Pelosi in House Democrats.
That's true.
Right?
Because he really played that her unlikables or a great leverage.
And if there's one thing that really gets Republican voters out, other than the potential for Supreme Court seats, is their disdain for Nancy Pelosi.
Yeah.
And the politics of Pelosi, which...
Are we really going to get her as a speaker again?
Yeah, which are divisive. Everybody in the Democratic caucus is beholden to her. She raises a ton of cash for him, raises a ton of money.
Well, at least she does something, I guess.
So they have to.
Is she going to do the creepy, like when she does her swear in a speaker ceremony, or is she going to do that Village of the Damned thing she did last time where she has like children swarm her on the floor of the House chamber? Do you remember that at all?
No,
it was just like there were no like Congress people in there. It was just like a bunch of children all like formally dressed like came like down all the aisles and then like gathered around her, and this is the people's house, and she's holding up the big gavel,
giant,
and all I could think was because
gavel.
little boys in ties and black suits and stuff like that, all I could think was, it's like, I think this is like a sequel to Village of the Damned.
I mean, it'll be interesting because a lot of Democrats running for Congress were kind of quiet on the issue if they would elect Pelosi as Speaker.
They're going to, though, I mean.
Well, they have to, because otherwise they'll get kicked out of the caucus. So basically, when all of these freshmen show up, they're going to be told to shut up and do what you say if you want to get reelected.
Yep.
You know, on a very few are going to have a scenario like Alexandria Cortez in New York, where it's a very safe district and she has outworked the incumbent there, so she can kind of do what she wants and be safe. But some of these Southern California Democrats that are in Republican territory, they're in a tough spot, really. You know, it's not a life I want at all. It's like a headache every day.
But let's see, Peter, do you have any more questions or anything?
I was getting used to the lyrical lilt of his voice.
Well,
you better be calming if you're going to be a political analyst, because there's a lot to be uncalm about. So
it's just the country, guys.
Oh, I guess. Okay, so I will. Okay, how about this? I'll throw my Democrat brothers and sisters of South Dakota a bone. What can they do to breathe more life back into the South Dakota Democrat Party? Because this is something sister podcast, South Dakota podcast, Scott Erisman has talked about. Is that just the roles for Democrats are not growing, and he blames a lot of the Democrat leadership, like Thornburg, who's head the party.
Well, I don't think it certainly isn't helpful when the head of your party, after your nominating convention, fails to file the paperwork and you've got to do it again.
Yeah.
That's not helpful. I think that they do. The only way I think that the Democrats can breathe life back into their party at this point is to get somebody elected statewide. They're without a figurehead, and that's a tough spot. That's a tough spot to be. You don't have the Dashiell and Johnson or Hearst Sandlin coalitions anymore. You just don't. You don't have it, and people like to back a winner, and certainly if you're backing a winner, in this case it's the Republicans, you're going to get a seat at the table, and that's why the power of incumbency is so important, because people want to continue to have that relationship and not want to start over on it. So I don't know how they get a figurehead.
Do they build one? Do they build a giant golden calf? Is that what they do?
I don't know.
A literal figurehead?
I don't know. I don't know how they do it. They're in a.
Or it'd be a donkey. It would be a donkey.
They're in a tough spot. Last election cycle, they really had no place to go but up, and then they went down. In this cycle in the state, you know, I don't know. We've got a Senate race coming up in 2020. You know, I think Mike Rounds has certainly grown as a senator, where you know he was an unpopular former governor. I think you know, he only won his Senate seat by 50.1%. It was a four-way race though, but he beat everybody else by 20 points still. But you know, it'll be interesting to see what you know, where Sutton ends up. You know, after this, he's got no seat in the legislature. You know, I don't know how is the campaign. I don't think you can move state funds to a federal race at all. So I don't know how much money, you know, he's got to sort of put into running for Senate, if that's something that he wants to do. But that certainly is, you know, something. But I don't think that unless you've got somebody who is holding an important statewide seat, like school and public land or governor or secretary of state or attorney general or one of the federal offices, that I don't know how they build.
Which kind of turns into a chicken or the egg. How do you get someone into one of those higher offices when you literally don't have a party to back?
Right.
Or backing you.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I cut you off earlier, but what's the outside optics on Suzy Jones, on Suzy Jones? Like, I mean, isn't she the head of the Democratic South Dakota Party or something like that?
She was, you know, and, as she was executive director, and a lot of Democrats weren't pleased with her leadership from the Democrats I talked to. And I just think that you shouldn't have made a hire from the Democrat Party if you just tried to do a bigger mass appeal to people. Sure, run as a Democrat, but find somebody who's not maybe a known commodity, or who's a slightly known commodity, but kind of who also knows what they're doing.
It's like if Dusty hadn't been busy running, he should have gotten Dusty to run his campaign.
Sure.
And that would have been a solid.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
Sure.
I see that. Okay.
It's just. I don't know Suzy at all. I've never met her. I'm sure she's nice. Like everybody in the state is nice.
They're all so nice.
They are.
That's the most important quality to have in this state.
Yeah.
Yes.
Did you have anything else, Tony?
I know we had ballot measures.
Oh shit! Yeah, we didn't even touch on those.
Oh yeah, those things.
Rapid fire. All
Rapid
right.
fire.
Yeah, rapid fire.
Those things on the back of the ballot, they make me fill in the little ovals for. I have no idea what those are. Just fill it in.
I just vote no on everything because they're confusing.
Yeah. There weren't really, in my opinion, there weren't a ton of surprises on there.
No.
I guess the tobacco tax 125 was I could have going into it. I could see it going into it. I didn't know how I was going to vote till I sat down.
Sure.
Wait, the tobacco tax did win?
No.
Okay.
No.
Okay.
It failed. So I could see it going either way. That was an interesting campaign where they made a lot of interesting bedfellows when you've got manufacturers in Mickelson, and then like all the healthcare groups saying how we need it, but for very different reasons. And then you've got the Education Association and the retailers, convenience stores getting into bed with big tobacco.
Oh, the
which I
Sioux
think
Falls
is-
School Board wanted it really bad.
But South Dakota Education Association came out hard against it. That's a story that our media should tell is okay. Yeah, the teachers union basically in bed with big tobacco. That's what really.
Yeah.
The tobacco industry.
That was a failed opportunity.
Dumped $6 million into defeating it, and good for them. I'm not disparaging them at all. Their industry was under attack at the ballot, and they've got every right to defend themselves.
Free
Even
speech.
though 24, which would have banned their money, passed, they still have every right under the Constitution to defend themselves. Then you've got Education Association basically giving their stamp of approval to tobacco. So it's just interesting. I'm not saying whether it's good or bad. It's just
Why
interesting.
why was the teachers union now for it? Because we all know that money was never going to touch education in a million years.
Well, I think
the same thing that the voter thought too. That's
Like, yeah, whatever.
I read the thing.
You keep telling yourselves
that's
that.
the way they wrote it.
I
say the first 20,000 or 20 million or something, and then you have no other follow up on that. It just leaves me to think that the first 20 million is going to that, but none of the rest.
I think that they saw it as if you're going to raise it regularly, then it should go to all of education, not just the tech schools.
That would have got
It would probably is why Education Association was probably against it, because we still have low-paid teachers, and there's huge disparity between, this is a whole other topic, just between administration and teaching.
No, in this state,
in
in
the
particular,
state,
like it's
right.
2 to 1. It's crazy.
And so, when you've got, teachers that are low paid, why not raise the tax, give them, but, we're looking at raising the tax to lower tuition when I don't know if the legislature even just looked at lowering tuition, just lower it, right?
That's crazy
lower
talk.
it, right?
What?
There's state schools, lower the tuition.
Madness.
Make some cuts elsewhere. It'll be hard. Lower, but part of it's all just marketing. Okay, lower the tuition, but increase the fees.
Yeah. That's true.
Yeah,
That's what it comes down to, right?
This is happening after
Don't give them ideas.
They already know that
Don't be
one.
giving them advice about how they
Screwed
can
up
increase
$2
what it
million,
costs to
man.
go to school. They don't need any help. Let me tell you.
Yeah, this is a few years ago, or however many years, we are whenever this Southeast Tech STI president, resigned, that, I don't know, they had some fuckery with some accounting because there's like $2 million that they, am I remembering this wrong, or?
I just don't remember it, period. I don't know what you're talking about.
Okay. Wow. Okay.
But
Seth,
maybe you are
you're now our
remembering it
expert.
right.
Shit, I'm gaslighting myself right now. But no, yeah, I'll have to do my research and not just rely on my fuzzy memory. But yeah, there was some financial woes that STI had after, prior to the resignation of the last president of STI.
When would that have been, approximately?
2 years ago, I probably.
Okay, so like when I was
2015, 2014, something like that.
So like the year before I came here, actually.
Let alone all that stuff with Gear
shit.
Up.
Then 2015, 2016, I'm really bad with years of my life.
Okay.
So, yeah, life.
They all kind of just become one.
Something like that, Yeah, but I just got a bad memory. But I'll look it up and I'll find it.
So the things that passed were 24, which is the out-of-state money ban thing, and then W, which was the single...
No, W didn't pass.
failed Big league.
No, which one? Okay.
Z passed.
Z, sorry. Z,
which
the
is single issue.
single issue. That's
Yeah,
where I was going.
yeah.
Sorry, W
is
was the
odd.
one that was the more, probably the most competitive or whatever, big, one I saw the most advertising for or against.
Yeah.
But yeah, what do you like? I don't mind Z. I think that one makes sense to me with the single issue on the ballot.
The one that surprised me, and that one makes sense to me. I think it made sense to a lot of something because we look at, I think people are still upset over Marcy's Law and how much of a fiasco that was.
Unintended consequences,
and all of the
yeah.
unintended consequences, and that touched a ton of different areas.
And this still leaves it open that it's
And-
like our petitioning or our
Right.
ballot process.
Yeah.
We can still do that. It just
But
keeps you
it's-
from taking
yeah,
a giant
yeah.
3-ring binder of
or-
stuff and
or
throwing
like
it in the
W,
Constitution.
which would have doubled the size of the Constitution and touched all kinds of areas. If you want to set up an accountability board, okay, let's have an amendment to set that up. If you want to do campaign finance reform in the Constitution, that's an amendment too. Let's set that up. So I think Z, really, I think if you couple 24 and Z together, I think it shows that South Dakotans are really getting tired of out-of-state interests playing with our ballot and our Constitution and coming here and trying to take this one-size-fits-all, we want to change from LA.
Tired of being a testing ground.
Yeah, the government around the country.
Yeah, didn't Taylor Swift come out for one of those?
Taylor Swift, she was doing the whole like.
No, but
politician
no, I
publicly,
think it was
Jennifer Lawrence.
Hunger Games.
Jennifer Lawrence.
Hunger
There you
Games. I was like, oh my gosh, the Hunger Games chick says it's a good idea. I'll vote right now.
And the thing is,
I volunteer as tribute.
Is I thought of it too because she was in American Hustle with who else was there? Christian Bale, right?
Christian Bale.
Some other really
McConaughey?
I think McConaughey was McConaughey.
Probably right.
Yeah.
You're probably
Anyway, and Pressler was
We go to your house. There's a wall dedicated to her.
a big thing. With
Oh shit,
Adam
that's
Sandler,
right. That movie was like.
So that movie came out when he was running for Senate against Mike Rounds. If there was ever a time where Jennifer Lawrence could have impacted a vote, it would have been in that election. Quite frankly, because you've got, because suddenly Pressler was all over national media, because he was good at doing the outreach, and the movie was extremely popular. The movie was really good. The movie was extremely popular. But if you would have had the cast of American Hustle coming to here and saying, we need to send Senator Pressler back to Washington to clean it up, blah, 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 all this stuff, he could have come close to winning.
I don't know if he would or not.
Yeah, I think
Maybe.
I think that's
it would have been interesting. It would have been, the media would have picked up on it, and people would have been like, "Oh yeah, that's right. Oh, Jennifer Lawrence. Wow." But to your point on W, you had Ed Helms, who I think probably thought this was North Dakota.
Yep.
And Jennifer Lawrence,
who's spoken to a microphone for somebody and has like
where's
no
this
idea
on
where
the
this
map?
went.
right? And
Yeah.
So the proponents of W could not find a single South Dakotan to go on television to say this is bad when let's face it. I mean, the politicians, the supermajority of Republicans really didn't want W,
Right.
But they were smart by getting Karen Soley, a Democratic legislator and a pastor, to come out and talk about how bad W is and how it's going to undermine everything, and that she's the one who actually has put all of these protections already in law. We don't really need W, and this is going to be a headache to do. So I think if you couple the lesson, I think coupling W and Z together is South Dakotans are tired of out-of-state interests playing with our ballot process.
Sure.
And this is a way for them to or to express their frustration with it. 24, wholly unconstitutional.
Yeah.
Going to get thrown out.
Yep.
But people were at least
registering
their frustration.
Yep.
That goes in line with what you just said.
One thing that surprised me was X. I thought X would have done better. That was a supermajority
Amendment X.
Pass amendments to the Constitution. At 55% is not really that big. I thought that would have passed, ironically, without 55% of the vote, but passed anyway. But it failed by 54% of voters voting against it. So, nothing really. I think the biggest lesson is that South Dakotans are frustrated with out-of-state interests putting things on the ballot, as evidenced by how they voted on Z and 24. That's my 2 cents on the ballot measures.
Very good.
Okay, can I ask one last question, Robert?
Yes.
Oh! Did I just break your plan?
Nope. You can ask me a
Okay,
question.
I don't want him down. This is your show. I'm the guest. This is his circus. I'm just a performer.
Just ask it.
Okay, sorry. Okay, so Jason Ravnsburg, I like him as a guy. I think he'll be a good attorney general. But he did skip a lot of debates in both the primary and during the general. And do you think that'll create any kind of precedent? I mean, are people going to take from this that, wow, debates really don't help your campaign, or they don't affect it very much?
I think that in the end, I don't think that. I think it was probably in the end a smart move for Ravnsburg to avoid debates. There were too many questions over his experience, and that was a point that Seiler was always hammering and hitting and hammering.
Yeah.
And hitting. It was probably his best that Jason not openly walk into that. He's also, not retired like Seiler, so I don't know if he even had the time, because he was still a working attorney, member of the armed forces, so he was a very, very busy guy. To your point is, I don't know if they help. None of the other constitutional officers did debates or forums.
So should we be surprised we see more of that pattern in the future?
I think each election is different.
So that's a no. That's an unknown. Who knows?
It's unknown. Don't know. It'll be, certainly when people are incumbents, they've got a lot more power, and the strategy is don't ever give your opponent an opportunity.
That's true.
So 4 years from now, probably see a fewer debates. I mean, the governor's race, you're going to have your public broadcasting and the TV debates, but that's really might be it.
All right, that's it. I'm done. Zip the lip.
You're fine.
The Sioux Empire Podcast proudly presents this week's Shameless Plugs.
Okay, Tony, this is the part of the show where if you got anything you're selling or promoting or like a website people should check out, anything like that, if you want to, this is the point where you can throw that out there. That's how we finish the show.
I don't know if I've got any shameless plugs. All my hair is real, so I don't have to get that way. I would implore people to not blast their Christmas music too early. Is my shameless plug.
Hallmark's already running their Christmas movies.
Thanksgiving's early this year, guys. It's like next week.
Yeah,
so can we hold out just this week, please? The Sunday before Thanksgiving, let's pull out the Christmas music, but let's try to temper that. That's my. It's not a plug. It's a plea.
It's your appeal.
Plea.
Shameless plea. You should get another Cockney English guy, call him up on Fiverr and have them record that for you.
Yeah.
Fuck all people with the Cockney accent that try and pronounce my last name. Stay away from this last name. This isn't your last name. Get away from this last name. It's my last name.
So Seth.
It's not Glover. It's Glover. Fucking glove, not glow, alright, man? I mean, I am shiny. I'm shining, that's alright. But my shameless plug is going to be to IBM for creating quantum computer that can accurately predict the polls. So by 2020, they'll have that quantum computer that his primary purpose is to forecast polls and you know, we're gonna have the greatest election covered by quantum computers in 2020 that the leader will allow us.
And then by the Wednesday after Election Day in 2020, that will go away because it was probably wrong. History is hot as anything.
Skynet attacks the day before the election.
Oh, Skynet's more like Y2K, huh? It's tried so hard.
Peter, what do you got for a shameless plug for us?
Okay, I'm going to shameless
You might tell
plug.
people about a podcast.
Shameless plug. Fun fact, my dad had plugs, and he said they came from Tibetan monks. And that's what they told him. I was like, that can't be real. Tibetan monks, that's all they did. It's like their hobby. I just grow this hair out to give it to fat Americans.
You gotta fund their lifestyle somehow.
So while we're here,
Sorry. Real shameless plug. Happy Warrior Podcast. That's Robert's and I's baby. I do that 1/3 of the time with Robert, 2/3 of the time by myself. We like to do a mix of news and just political topic matter kind of podcast. So it's a mix between an evergreen and a daily political podcast. I'm sometimes a little slow to get done, but we're 6 months in. Happy Warrior Podcast. You can catch me on Happy Warrior Pete. My email's like pete@happy-warrior.net. We even have a Twitter. I want to say it's Happy Warrior P. Something like that.
You should really know.
I want to say.
You want to say it, but you won't.
Yeah.
Well, as always, my shameless plugs are for this podcast. If you like what we do here at the Sioux Empire Podcast, bringing in local newsmakers and thinkers and artists, please support the Sioux Empire Podcast and the work we do, bringing you local content at patreon.com/Sioux Falls. There you can get behind-the-scenes content, exclusive content, and just... yeah, you could support the organization if you enjoy what we're doing. You could also leave us a review on iTunes, Stitcher, SoundCloud, or Spotify, if that's what you want to do. That doesn't cost anything and sure helps us out. And as always, we plug Siouxpercon, and then we always plug Live 605, the online radio station that plays local music here in Sioux Falls. Great guys over there. And they're always playing episodes of our podcasts, too, so be sure to check out Live 605. Thank you for joining us, everyone. Tony, thank you for coming. Pete, thanks for coming.
Thanks for having me. Thank you.
Seth, good to see you again.
Hey.
And we will see you all, might not be next week, because by the time this comes out, the next weekend will be Turkey Day. So if we don't talk to you again,
Gobble.
happy Thanksgiving.
Happy Thanksgiving.